Taya had been walking for hours, her small legs shaking, her breath thin from fear and dust. She kept one hand tightly wrapped around her younger brother Nalan's wrist, as if letting go for even a second would make him disappear. The Arizona desert around them stretched endlessly in every direction, dry and quiet, except for the wind that carried the memory of everything they had just run from. The raid had broken apart their small family group so quickly that Taya still could not understand how it happened. One moment she had been beside her mother. The next, smoke and shouting filled the air, and she was pulling her brother behind the rocks while everyone scattered. Their parents had disappeared into the chaos, leaving only the terrible sound of fear behind them. Now Taya tried to be strong because she had no choice. She was only 12, but she felt older as she held Nalan close, guiding him through every step. She whispered soft promises to him even when she was unsure about anything herself. She kept repeating that she would protect him, that they would find help, and that their parents would come back. But inside her chest, worry kept growing like a stone pressing on her heart. Every time she looked at the empty desert, it felt like the world had forgotten them. She led her brother into a narrow, rocky pass where tall stones offered a small amount of shade. The rocks felt cool under her hand, and she used that small comfort to calm herself. Nalan sat beside her, hugging his knees. His eyes were wide, full of confusion and fear. Taya placed her arm around him, pulling him closer. "We wait here," she told him softly, "just until it is safe." Nalan nodded, trusting her completely. He always trusted her. That made her heart heavier because she wished she felt as strong as he believed she was. The sun began to sink lower in the sky, and the desert became quieter. That silence was not comforting, it made every sound stand out sharply. A distant crack echoed through the air, like a rifle being fired somewhere far away. Taya stiffened and held her breath. She listened carefully, terrified that someone dangerous might still be searching the area. She pressed a hand over Nalan's mouth gently, not to silence him, but to remind him to stay quiet. Minutes passed that felt like hours. Sweat gathered on Taya's forehead even though the wind had cooled. She looked out from behind the rock, scanning the horizon again and again. She saw nothing at first, but then, far off, a cloud of dust rose slowly from the ground. It grew wider, like something large was moving toward them. Her heart began to pound. She pulled her brother back behind the rocks and crouched low. She had seen that kind of dust before. Large groups of riders often created it when they moved quickly. She had no way to tell from this distance who they were. Her tribe? Enemy riders? Outsiders who might not welcome two scared Apache children lost in the desert? Nalan whispered. "Who is it?" Taya shook her head. "I don't know. Stay behind me." She kept her eyes fixed on the dust cloud. As it came closer, she began to hear the steady rhythm of hooves hitting the ground. It was not fast. Not the speed of people hunting or attacking. It was slower, organized. There were voices too deep, calm voices calling to each other. She narrowed her eyes and realized the riders were soldiers. Her stomach tightened. She had been taught to stay far away from them. Sometimes misunderstandings between tribes and soldiers turned into tragedies. Even when soldiers brought supplies or meant peace, fear and rumor made the gap between them wide. Taya had always felt unsure about them, unsure about their intentions, unsure if they truly understood her people at all. She pressed her back against the stone, trying to decide whether to hide deeper or step out. She wanted to protect her brother, but hiding forever was impossible. Their water was almost gone, and Nalan was tired. If they stayed hidden and dangerous riders passed, they risked being found anyway. If they showed themselves and the soldiers meant harm, they had no way to run. The riders slowed as they reached the entrance of the rocky pass. The sound of shifting leather and hoofbeats echoed between the stones. One soldier, older than the others and with a calm voice, swung down from his horse. He walked carefully, not rushing, not shouting. He looked around with the steady gaze of someone searching for survivors, not enemies. His voice carried gently through the pass. "If anyone is here," he said in slow, clear words, "we came to help. We heard there were missing children from the raid." Taya's breath caught. He sounded sincere. His tone was not angry, not demanding. It was heavy with concern, like he expected frightened faces to appear. She stayed frozen for a moment, thinking hard. Nalin tugged on her arm. Taya. Maybe they can help. Taya. Nalin. Taya. Taya. She felt her throat tighten. She wanted to trust him, but fear made her hold back. Still, she knew this might be the only chance they had. Slowly, she rose to her feet. She tightened her grip on Nalin's hand and stepped out from behind the rock. The soldier saw them immediately, and instead of reaching for a weapon, he lowered himself to one knee so he would not tower over them. His movements were calm, almost gentle. "It's all right," he said softly. "We're not here to harm you." More soldiers noticed the two children and stopped their horses. They stayed at a respectful distance, not surrounding or crowding them. Taya felt her pulse race, but seeing the soldiers remain still eased a little of her fear. The older soldier held out a canteen. "Are you hurt? Do you need water?" Taya hesitated, but Nalin's dry lips told her what to do. She took the canteen slowly, watching the man's eyes to make sure there was no trick. Then she knelt and gave the first drink to her brother. Nalin drank greedily before handing it back. When she finally drank a small sip herself, the water felt like relief spreading through her entire body. The soldier asked quietly, "Are your parents nearby?" Taya shook her head, fighting tears she refused to show. "We don't know where they went." The soldier nodded without pushing for more. "Then come with us. We have a medical camp not far from here. You'll be safe there." Taya looked at her brother. His small fingers tightened around hers as if he was asking her to choose safety for him. She took a long breath and gave a small nod. The soldier gently helped her onto his horse, lifting Nalin carefully so she could hold him in front of her. As the horse began to move, Taya kept looking back at the desert, expecting danger to appear at any moment. For so long, she believed they were alone, that no one would come, that the world had forgotten them. But now, riding among these soldiers, she felt a small warmth growing inside her. It was not full trust yet, but it was something close to hope. For the first time since the raid, she allowed herself to believe that she and her brother might not be alone after all. Taya held tightly to her brother as the soldier's horse moved forward at a steady pace. The animal's warmth pressed through her clothes, and the gentle rhythm of its steps felt strangely comforting after the long, frightening hours she had spent running through the desert. Nalin leaned back against her, exhausted but calmer than before. He trusted the soldier without question, the way children often trust a kind face. Taya tried to do the same, but her heart still beat fast with caution. She watched every movement around her, studying the soldiers as they rode in a protective formation. She noticed how they never let anything approach from behind, and how they kept their distance from the two siblings, careful not to crowd or frighten them. The older soldier, the one who had found them, rode beside her on foot for a while, guiding the horse with a gentle hand on its bridle. He glanced up at her every now and then, making sure she and Nalin were still steady. His steps were slow, as if he wanted her to feel safe and unhurried. After some time he said quietly, "You're very brave. Both of you." Taya swallowed hard. She didn't feel brave. She felt tired, scared, and unsure of everything. But she didn't say that. Instead, she nodded slightly, grateful he didn't try to force more conversation. The desert slowly changed as they traveled. The sun continued to drop, painting the sky in soft orange and dusty pink. The path widened, and the rocky walls eventually opened up into a flat area where tents stood in careful rows. Smoke rose gently from a cooking fire, and the soft murmur of voices drifted through the air. It was the medical camp the soldier had spoken of. Taya felt her breath catch. She had expected chaos or stern faces, but the camp looked organized and peaceful. The soldiers at the gate noticed them and hurried over, asking quiet questions. When they saw the children's tired faces and dusty clothes, their expressions filled with concern. The soldier who rescued them explained what had happened. His voice was steady, respectful, and he made sure no one approached too quickly. Taya appreciated that. She still wasn't ready to trust everyone at once. She and her brother were guided toward a large tent where a doctor waited. The doctor was a calm-looking man with kind eyes. He crouched down to speak to Nalan first, asking him simple questions and offering him warm blankets. Nalan hesitated only a moment before accepting. Taya watched every second, alert in case something felt wrong. But the doctor's hands were gentle, his tone soft. When he turned to Taya, he asked her if she had any injuries. She shook her head, but admitted quietly that she was tired. He gave her water and suggested she sit for a while. She agreed, though she kept her eyes on her brother the whole time. Meanwhile, the older soldier stood near the tent entrance, making sure no one overwhelmed the siblings. He spoke to a few officers, explaining that the children had shown great courage during the raid and that they were still frightened. His respect for them eased something inside Taya. She realized he wasn't just showing kindness, he genuinely cared what happened to them. Hours passed. The sun disappeared, replaced by a cool desert night. Lanterns flickered through the camp, casting warm circles of light on the ground. Taya sat, wrapped in a blanket, her brother asleep beside her. She felt safer than she had felt in a very long time. But she still wasn't sure what would happen next. Would they be taken somewhere far away? Would they ever see their family again? Just as worry began to return, a soft sound came from outside the tent. Hooves, footsteps, and voices speaking in a language Taya understood instantly. Apache scouts. Taya froze, her heart beating fast. A moment later, the tent flap opened, and one of the scouts stepped in. He looked tired and dusty from searching, but when his eyes landed on the children, he stopped breathing for a second. His face softened, and tears filled his eyes. Taya. Nalin, he whispered. It was her father's cousin, one of the men who had helped guide their family group earlier in the journey. Behind him, more scouts entered, speaking hurriedly with the soldiers. The reunion happened quietly but full of emotion. Taya stood up slowly, unsure if she should run into his arms or if she was still dreaming. But he crossed the space between them in 2 quick steps and wrapped her gently in an embrace. She felt the tightness in her chest finally break. Her uncle-like guardian picked up Nalan carefully, cradling him against his chest. Nalan stirred, then opened his eyes. When he saw the familiar face, he clung to him with relief. Taya wiped her eyes quickly, trying not to cry. But she couldn't stop one small tear from rolling down her cheek. She had believed they were completely alone. She had believed no one was coming, and now, here her family stood, alive and searching for them. The older soldier stepped forward and spoke respectfully to the scouts. He explained how they found the children and how brave they had been. The scouts listened with gratitude, nodding respectfully in return. There was no anger, no distrust, only relief that the children had been protected. Later that night, after the scouts had spoken with the officers and everyone had calmed, Taya approached the older soldier again. She felt nervous, unsure of how to express what she wanted to say. He noticed her and gave her a reassuring smile. "Are you all right?" he asked. Taya nodded slowly. She looked down for a moment before raising her eyes again. "I thought we were going to be alone," she admitted in a soft, trembling voice. "I thought no one would come." The soldier's face softened. He shook his head gently. "No child should ever feel that," he said. "Sometimes, help comes from places you don't expect. But you were never forgotten." His words reached deep into her heart, touching the fear she had carried since the raid. She looked at him quietly, then glanced at her brother sleeping in their guardian's arms. Everything inside her felt lighter. The next morning came early. The sky was pale and calm. The scouts prepared their horses to take the children back to their community, where the rest of the families were gathering safely. Taya stood near the tent, watching the soldiers as they readied themselves for another long day. Before leaving, she approached the older soldier one last time. In her hand, she held a small bead charm, made from smooth stones and simple leather. It was one of the few things she had managed to keep during the chaos of the raid. Offering it to someone was a meaningful gesture, a symbol of gratitude from her people. She held it out with both hands. "For you," she said softly. "Thank you for helping us." He accepted it with silent respect, understanding its importance. "I'll keep it safe," he promised. "And I'm glad you're going home." Taya nodded. She felt a tug on her sleeve, one of the scouts signaling that it was time to leave. She glanced at the soldier one last time, then turned and followed her family. As she rode away, Taya looked back at the camp, at the soldiers who had stood between her and danger when she had no one else. The desert stretched out behind them, wide and silent, but she no longer felt small or forgotten. She no longer felt alone. She held her brother close and let out a long, steady breath. She had survived something terrible, but she had also learned something strong, that kindness could appear from unexpected places, and that even in fear, hope could still find its way.